Greetings to one and all. This will be my 7th tutorial on how to play a Ventrue character vampire in Vampire the Masquerade role-playing game, and today I will cover some general advice about in-game conflicts. Before I start, however, I must state that I am no expert, so if you see me make a mistake, feel free to point it out in the comments. Now, a typical Ventrue character is not a fighter, like Bruja or a gangrel. A courthouse or a debating room is the Ventrue's battleground, and they prefer to use others to do actual fighting for them. So the best thing you can do is avoid combat whenever possible. Unfortunately, sometimes combat is unavoidable, and you will inevitably find yourself having to fight. The sad fact is that more often than not, you will meet people who will be openly hostile to you, and making friends in the game will be very difficult. The reasons for this are many. Ventrue are perhaps the most hated of all clans, which is unsurprising considering their reputation. Just remember Sebastian Lacroix from Bloodlines and the slave master Count Orsi from Redemption. Also bear in mind that the clan's reputation is well earned. For thousands of years, they have lied, betrayed, and backstabbed both friend and foe for the sake of their own self-interests. Beyond that, their skills in manipulation of others, both magical and verbal, make it extremely hard to trust them. Lastly, and this is another sad fact, oftentimes, even if a player is a good and kind person in real life, their vampire character will tend to be a major bastard and more than happy to insult you or even attack you. I have had trouble with this too, and the best advice I can give you here is this. People will be rude to you, they will be cruel, and they will be mean. They will try to provoke you. Do not let them. Even if you are itching for payback, never let yourself be drawn into a conflict when and where your opponent wants you to fight. It is always a trap. Do not give them what they want. A better option by far is for you to stay cool, leave them to their petty manners, and get away from them. This alone will drastically reduce their social standing, and later on, if you are so inclined, you can confront them at the time and place of your choosing, where the circumstances favor you. The next thing you should keep in mind is that you will often be confronted by those who are stronger, faster, older, and generally more dangerous than yourself. The magic of the Ventrue bloodline is formidable, but in a fight, celerity and potence are better. So what you should do is ask yourself, how can I defeat or evade a foe who has potence? How can I escape someone who has celerity? How can I resist dominate? How can I hide myself from someone who has auspex? How can I hurt someone who has fortitude? What should I do if a Tremere starts casting spells against me? How can I escape if I find myself surrounded by enemies? How can I protect myself from burning in a fire? How can I find someone who is obfuscated? And so on. Oftentimes, having a general idea of what your foe can do is enough. Remember that the 21st century has made many technological advancements which can help you find answers to such questions. But make sure to talk with the storyteller about whatever you come up with. The storytellers must approve of it first, before you start relying on it in-game. Also remember that any act of violence or malice will feed the beast within you, causing you to lose a portion of your humanity. Killing or hurting, either kind or kindred, even in self-defense, is an evil act, and such acts are steps towards becoming a mindless rabid animal. Sadly, such acts are sometimes unavoidable for kindred, but at least you can regain your lost humanity by performing an act of kindness or by spending an experience point. More on that in my next tutorial. A good protection can also be to have some dirt on your enemy. Camarilla has many rules, and many players can be ignorant of them. If you can catch them in breaking the traditions or the prince's edicts, then you can use that to shield yourself from them at the very least. Furthermore, if you can get someone to feed on another clan's territory or break the Peace of Elysium, or if you can provoke them to break hospitality in another's domain, or if you can get them to use a discipline in an Elysium or something like that, it will be as good as turning the whole community against them. As I've said, this is something that others will try to do to you too by insulting you, so keep your eyes peeled. Now, let's say that you have done all in your power to secure yourself and still you end up in a fight. The first and most important rule is not to argue with storytellers. Fighting in-game has very strict rules enforced by the storytellers, who can literally pull things out of thin air to kill you. If a storyteller starts attacking you using hordes of NPCs and a bunch of things designed to trip you, hurt you, or kill you, then you must have broken the game rules. Instead of fighting back, try and figure out what you did wrong and how you can make it right. Try talking with him about it, but do it politely and in private. And bear in mind that the storytellers have the final word in any such argument. The second most important rule to keep in mind is that the battle is done in turns, and you only get one action per turn, 2 at the very most. For example, let's say your character is surrounded by bloodthirsty anarch. First he throws his coat at one, then he kicks the other, then he uses a discipline, then he dodges another one, breaks the window and flees outside. You cannot do all of that in a single turn. Unless you have a very advanced celerity, you will need 6 turns for something like that. Breaking this rule will bring the storytellers down upon you. Also, do not pull stuff out of thin air when in combat. Your character cannot have a sawed-off shotgun filled with dragon-bred rounds on their person unless you somehow acquired it in a previous storyline with storyteller's permission. Storytellers may do things like that to punish violations, but common players cannot. Lastly, before the actual battle starts, make doubly sure that everyone have a clear idea of the battlefield. This is usually a job for the storyteller, who will describe what the area looks like, the number of combatants, including the NPCs, and what is around you. Be mindful of this. Sometimes live electricity and water, flammable substances, fire extinguishers, pressurized pipes or containers, weak construction, and stuff like that can be of much use. That is the end of my 7th tutorial. In my next tutorial, I will speak about dice rolls, actions, and combat. I hope this was helpful to you, and I'll see you again soon.